It is a distinct pleasure and honor and just another amazing day in the life of us to welcome all of you to our global webinar. And this one we chose out of the air of the topic of servant leadership, something that I know quite a few of you are interested in. I know, Frances, you've been studying this for a long time. And
Yeah.
Jodi, you and I have been writing and coaching and teaching on these topics as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we thought we would do is start off with some remarks, comments from Frances, and then open it up to a dialogue, mostly between the three of us, but I will be looking at the chat window throughout to see if there are some comments or prompts that get you thinking. Most importantly, as we go through this morning, please take some notes, write down some action items. At the end of the program, we would love to hear from you with your one action item. And I think that's where we'd like to focus, and that's where we'd like to kick off. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, it's a great honor to be with Jason and Jodi. And it is a great honor to be with each one of you today. When I was CEO of Girl Scouts of the USA, I knew I had to define leadership in my own terms, in my own language, in ways that somehow would communicate and embody the heart, the spirit of leadership I was called to provide. After long and difficult introspection, also known as agonizing, I developed my own definition of leadership, and it is mine to this day. Leadership is a matter of how to be, not how to do. Based on my own long experience, all of the how-tos in the world won't work until the how-to-be's are defined, embraced by the leaders, and embodied and demonstrated in every action, every communication, every moment. And so the leader for today and for the future will be focused on how to be. And we begin by developing the quality, character, mindset, values, principles, and courage needed to lead into the future. And I think we could add now more than ever. Now, in all interactions from the smallest to the largest, the behavior of the how to be leader will demonstrate a belief in the worth and the dignity of the men and women who make up the enterprise. How to be leader knows that people are an organization's greatest asset, and in word, behavior, and relationships, she or he demonstrates this powerful, inspiring philosophy. I believe passionately in the whys, the values, the principles, the beliefs that define who we are, what we believe, what we do, and how we work with others, our fellow travelers. And they are our fellow travelers on a shared journey to leadership in an uncertain future and uncertain world. And at this moment, rarely has it been so uncertain, so difficult for us to see a bright future. The How to Be Leader knows that the people are the greatest asset or behavior for the organization, and I believe passionately in the whys, the values and principles and beliefs that define who we are, what we believe, what we do, and how we work with others, our fellow travelers on a shared journey to leadership into this uncertain future and uncertain world. And the last month that we have lived through underscores what I have just shared. It is how to be qualities, not baskets of skills, rise in miraculous ways. These how to be qualities: comfort, sustain, challenge, and embrace. Now, you and I spend most of our lives learning how to do and teaching others how to do, and yet we know in the end it is the quality and character of the leader that determines the performance, the results. For me, we all have to have a battle cry no matter what we call it, but for me, to serve is to live is my battle cry, and it has been for many years, and I don't want to change it. I like it. To serve is to live. And when we choose to lead, we take on both opportunity and responsibility. We have the ability to make this profound difference in the lives of others. Rarely has there been a stronger call in our country for principled, ethical, effective leadership as the call we hear today, and hope our greatest leaders will respond. Every day, my definition of leadership becomes more cogent, more logical, more imperative. Now, situations may change, and demands may escalate, and action plans may vary, and goals may be revised to meet the new realities, yet the basic leadership values and principles never, ever change. It is the quality and character of the leader that determines the performance, the results. Think about this quote. Be careful of your thoughts, for your thoughts become your words. Be careful of your words, for your words become your deeds. Be careful of your deeds, for your deeds become your habits. And be careful of your habits, for your habits become your character, and be careful of your character, for your character becomes your destiny. Author Anonymous. And speaking of destiny, I have a vision of the future that I hope we are all called to share. I call it Bright Future. It is a country of healthy children and strong families and good schools for all children and safe neighborhoods and work that dignifies all and faith that sustains. And all of this is embraced by the diverse, cohesive, inclusive community that cares about all of its future. Bright future. That vision shimmers far, far in the distance. The leaders of the future must move beyond the walls, and they build a healthy community as energetically as they built the institution, the corporation, that enterprise within the walls. How to be corporate leaders tell me there is no hope for a productive enterprise within those walls if the community outside the walls cannot provide this healthy, energetic, competitive, motivated workforce so essential to the corporation of the future. So today, happily, we find there's a new openness among the best managed, best led corporations to forming partnerships with social sector organizations that address critical needs. And there is this wonderful new openness to encourage their own people to volunteer, to build community with a common bottom line, changing lives. And in this service, the people of the corporation find new meaning. They move from success to significance, as Peter Drucker would say. It is the quality and character of the leader that determines the performance, the results. So today I look at you, and I am filled with hope, because in the darkness of our times, you will shine a light, building that bright future. It is the quality and character of the leader that determines the performance, the results. Leadership is a matter of how to be, not how to do, and to serve is to live.
Thank you.
Nicely done. Thank you.
And thank you all for sharing a little bit of the energy that I get when I get to visit this office here on Park Avenue. So many thoughts rolling around my mind. Jodi, you and I spend quite a bit of our time, and Frances, you use the word destiny.
Yes.
And the way that I interpreted it from you was there's an active part of that.
Yes.
We are in charge of, we contribute.
We do.
Through act, through deed, and through choices.
We really design it, don't we? And what you just said, all of that contributes.
And I know
to our future.
I know a lot of the people we meet with, they ask us the question, how do I know what my destiny is? Or how do I know what shiny future to go for in all of the shiny futures? And so maybe, Jodi, if you want to share a little bit, I'm thinking of the momentum question number 1. I'm thinking of some of the coachings that you've had really recently with people. But just a couple of words on that line.
Yeah, determining, I love being in this office with you, Frances, so much because we're surrounded on all sides by your books, your honors, your medals, and the first, you on magazines as the first woman, and just all the ground that you have opened up for all the women of the future.
Thank you.
And it's inspiring. And so the first question that Jason was talking about is of the Get Momentum book that we have is, what do you want to be known for? And when you read your comments about a leader is how you are, and it's
Yes.
that sense of being. And I think that question, I'm trying to determine a question with this. How would you encourage people, or what advice do you have to help people determine what they want to be known for?
Well, the first, most important is we listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
There is an art to listening, and there is a future that lies ahead. And some of us see a bright future, and others are seeing everything as negative and sad. And so what we do is respond in very positive ways. There are 2 ways to respond to a question or an issue. One is, well, things are pretty bad, and this is just one more example, and I hope we can all pull together and do something about it. Or they look at it and they say, there is real hope here because, and if you and I work together on this, it's amazing what we can accomplish for others.
Mm-hmm.
To serve is to live.
One of the themes that came through in a lot of the questions and the emails that you sent us, and I spent some time thinking in my mind how to frame this. It's going to come down to us.
Yes.
And there was a little bit, I'm just going to say from my own subjective opinion, there was a little bit of energy in some of the questions about what if I work in an organization and they, and there was this looking out at how they are, if they're not great leaders, if the organization is apathetic, and that's where I hold up the mirror and I ask myself, in an environment where I may not agree with leadership, I may feel that things should be differently, but it's going to come down to what we do. And so I think there's this balance that as the CEO of the Girl Scouts, as the namesake of the Frances Hesselbein Leadership Forum, then there's the perspective of the person who's going to an office. Maybe they're of that age set we were talking about this morning, the new greatest generation. But I guess the prompt here, and I've got to get you talking a little bit because you passing the mic, we want to hear from you too. How does someone lead without a title? I think that's a worthy question. How does someone look out at the world not in a titled position of leadership and have any kind of an impact?
Well, I think what Frances mentioned and how we hold ourselves and how we are, and not just what we do and the actions we take, which also speak very loudly on what it is we believe and what we think, but who we are and what we stand for and what we don't stand for, what things we bring to the attention of others, that level of integrity that we can look back on everything we do and say, yes, those are things I believe in, even if they weren't popular or...
Yes. I agree totally, is to have a positive view, to be able to say to young people, I see a very bright future. Well, they're used to listening to garbage about, oh, how rotten everything, oh, how sad, how bad things are. We can give them examples of where people are making such a remarkable difference. And when a friend of mine I shouldn't tell you this, but it's a funny joke about me. The other day, a friend of mine said, after I'd given a speech, she said, Frances, what are you drinking these days? I said, well, all the caffeine-free Diet Coke I can find. He said, no, I mean alcohol. The way you're talking about bright future and all the possibilities, what are you drinking? And I said, all you have to do is what Peter used to tell us to do. He said, I never predict. I simply look out the window and I see what is visible, but not yet seen. And so I think we say to the millennials, and they're so good at this, we look out the window. What is out there that most people are not seeing, but it is there? And for me, it's called bright future.
In a moment, I want to talk about one of the questions we ask, because this idea of positive, and I make a distinction between positive thinking and positive focus. So let me bookmark that and I'll come right back. But Frances, you and I and Jodi, we've walked on stages around the world, more than 60 countries you've spoken in.
62.
62, I've got 24. I'm leading up to something here, Frances. Every now and then I look at an audience and I realize that something happened good, that if I just stopped talking now, I would guarantee it. We just had a comment come in. I'm tempted to read the comment and end the webinar because this is good. We're going to keep going. But here's what someone just wrote. This is so refreshing. I work in a large organization and I often hear the response, that's above my pay grade, or not my job. This is about how I be responsible for leading in my area.
Yes.
And this is what she continues, Frances. How do I model the behaviors I wish to see in my staff and my peers, including listening, commitment to our values, integrity, and actions that arise from our commitments?
Yes. And one more, respect for all people. You are so right. I love what you said.
She wrote it.
She wrote it.
Someone out there
Thank you,
shared
Kristen.
that. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
Well, whoever it was, we love you. We love what you said, and just add respect. I've never in my lifetime, which is a long time, I have never observed the lack of respect so many people have. Leaders for other leaders, people for organizations. and respect. When you think at the time we were building the country, John Adams sat around the table next to George Washington. John Adams never owned a slave. George Washington at that moment owned 314 slaves. Yet the difference in that philosophy did not interfere. They could sit and build a country, even though they had different philosophies. They had respect for one another. They had respect for the country as it was, the country it could be. And these days, it's the one word I keep trying to find being demonstrated, hard to do.
And there's even that phrase, I respectfully disagree, meaning I acknowledge your viewpoint, and it may be very different and maybe even offensive, but I respect you, the person, and let's build the conversation.
Yes.
And I think you're right that is missing in so much of what we see. I wanted to comment on Kristen's post about how do I model this? So the what do you do, not just how do you be. In the book Get Momentum, we talk about catching people doing something right. Because so much of our systems and processes in the workplace are centered around finding the errors. I saw you earlier doing, Frances was editing, adding commas and things. Like there's such a focus on looking for errors and looking for what's wrong and looking for what's not the way we want it. We also need to have that attention to focus of what it is we do want. What actions, behaviors, language, what do we notice in the workplace when people open doors, when people help one another physically? Where can we catch people doing things right and comment on that and reinforce that?
Yes.
When I was in Colombia 2 weeks ago, and you just said that, I totally forgot about this story. And at the end of the speech, we were in a panel situation where the 4 keynote speakers and the audience of 600 people, they were submitting their questions. And one of the questions I received, the answer I shared, I don't know if I answered the question I was given. I answered the question I wanted to answer. But here's what I shared, and this would be the challenge. So as we move through the spectrum, how do I be as a leader? What do I do to be a leader? The suggestion I gave this audience of 600 HR managers, I said, give yourself a 5-week experiment. On Thursday for the next 5 weeks, open up your notebook, write down 5 or 10 people you worked with that week, you met with that week, you served that week. Write down something you learned about them as a person. And my thinking on this, and I know I've done this naturally for so long now, is the more I know the person I'm serving as a leader, as a colleague, as a peer, as a son, as a husband, as a friend, the more I know about the person I'm working with, we have to work better together. We have to. It's social, it's tribal, it's human.
And I think it builds on that respect. When we know where people are coming from, we know their experience. Now all of a sudden we have these common bonds and we can treat each other differently with more respect.
Yeah. Now more than ever. When we look at how richly diverse our country is and how essential it is that we respect all of our people from all of those 5 major ethnic groups right across all of them. There is this great respect, appreciation, understanding, not I'll build a wall between you and me.
We're writing curriculum for a new leadership course we're teaching in December. And in there, I'm putting a section of suggested reading materials. And Frances, what you just reminded me of is, from my perspective, the power of reading biographies and history.
Yes.
Biographies of the people in my industry, in the world that I'm moving into, biographies of people not who think like I do, but I can look to and find a commonality. I'm thinking specifically, I remember reading the biography of Mary Kay Ash. Mary Kay, the pink Cadillac, and realizing that she and I had a very similar childhood. Not a lot of financial resources, not a lot of physical support. I was selling from door to door at 6 years old. So when I'm reading this book about Mary Kay, as different as we could be, I found commonalities. I remember reading about Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee, the movie actor, some of you might know him as a martial artist. In fact, I always lead off with the movie actor because he was the one who single-handedly changed action films throughout the world. Bruce Lee, who by the time he was my age was dead for 7 years, actually. By the time he was not even out of his 30s, revolutionized. Who is it that you can read? Who can you look to for their experience, their life, where you find that commonality, where you can find that respect? And then I could go on too long, so I'll stop. Read our history. Not our history, but our history. Knowing from where we came gives us insight into why we are the way we are and how to shift going into the future.
Yes. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Frances, how many books have you written? I know it's in the high 20s. Is that correct?
22 books. 3 very personal ones.
Mm-hmm.
But we have more fun publishing. Mm-hmm. And you've met Yvette. Mm-hmm. We have Teresa and Frances. We have 3 of us in our Leader to Leader journal. Mm-hmm. Our magazine has been #1 of 1,600 journals and magazines that are published every year. In our country, we've been #1 for 8 years, Leader to Leader. Not because of us. Mm-hmm. The quality and character of the people who write for us as their contribution. We have never paid for one article. And we are now 8 years #1. I had someone call me and he said, I just talked to someone I won't mention, but a famous university publication, just met with someone from blank blank, and he says, hey, you know that Frances Hesselbein, don't you? And he said, oh, yeah, very well. We're very good friends. He said, can you tell me what in the H she is doing? We have tried to get that Apex Award for 8 years. We have won the Apex Award for Best Journal or Magazine. She's gotten the Apex Award for 8 years. What in the H is she doing? I said, you call your friend. Tell him it's not anything we are doing. It's the quality and character of the people who write for us. which is true.
That leads me to want to talk about mentors for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're going to start just whatever comes to mind, but share with us your view of mentors, how you are mentored and how you mentor others.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll keep on going.
And I feel very fortunate because I have both mentors in my life, and I get to mentor these two young teenage girls in writing and expressing themselves in print form. And to me, just to start off, mentors are people slightly ahead of where I am, or maybe far, far ahead, but they're people who can look back and care enough about me to want to see me expand in my life and step up to new levels. And I know that there are corporate programs that assign mentors, and that's a little bit different than how I personally think of it. But I do believe like those, the intention of those are to help those who are up and coming with how they become more of themselves and really take on new opportunities and maybe challenges of things they haven't done yet. When I meet with my writing girls, about twice a month through this program called Write Girl that's based out of Los Angeles, I help them take on bigger challenges. I encourage them to apply for grants and scholarships and to get their writing published in poetry books and contests. And sometimes they're so cute, they're shy, they're like, oh, I don't know if I would ever win. And it's not so much in the winning, but it's in the applying ourselves to a greater, something greater. And I think I felt that way when I meet with you, and you know, that I could step on stage and share my thoughts and experience. And not that I'm there to fix or tell anybody how to do their life, but let me just share a little bit about mine. And perhaps that would inspire someone to try something new, to step up onto a stage, whatever that, if that's metaphorically or literally. But as an introvert and someone who was always behind the scenes, to be in the front or to be on camera was always a very big challenge, and not something that I thought of for myself until I had mentors and fans and supporters that said, oh, you'd be great. Just go talk, go share, tell a story about how you got from here to there. And I know in a lot of your books that I've read, you talk about being a mentor and looking back and saying, who could I help? Who's going to take initiative and want something more for themselves so that they have more to give. And I think that's the chain of what that mentor relationship can really be about, is giving and participating on both levels.
I think you're absolutely right. I've had young people introduce me to someone else. Frances Hesselbein, she's my mentor. Well, I'm not about to say, well, not really. Okay, that's what do you feel? Yes, but it's something about the young people who come to this office and the classes I've taught at West Point. And when I say I've never had one disappointing moment, and people would say, well, that's impossible. You can't work with that generation and not be horrified or not be shocked. No, incredible. And what I'm finding with the young people we work with, they can't find enough ways to volunteer to serve. The other day, a young man came, he said, I had to come and see you. He's been one of our Hesselbein fellows. I just got back from Darfur.
Wow.
Now, if you're going to go anywhere, that's not where you're going. He said, Oh, I had the most wonderful time. And I served for 6 weeks with a community organization. So there's something about the millennials, whatever you want to call them. They're out there and they're volunteering. And they are, the way they talk about the country and about organizations, I'm just so filled with hope. My head keeps bumping the ceiling.
We ask a question in our work, and the wording can change if you want to change up the wording. Here's the energy behind the question. What positive things are happening that we can acknowledge? And what I appreciate as we wrote that question up and changed words, and that was what finally made it to print. What positive things are happening that we can acknowledge does not mean that we ignore the non-positive things. Absolutely, those are in our view, those are in our vista. But when I pause, and at the end of the day is when I do this, and I open up my little notebook by the side of my bed, and I let the words spill on the page. What positive things happen today that I can put energy on, that I can acknowledge, that I can notice? There's always something, small or big. There's always something. And I often remind myself and everyone that I get to work with, we're not suggesting that we just do positive thinking, because positive thinking by itself is not enough.
Right.
I follow that with a positive focus, and I follow that with a action. And so as you're thinking about what you want to do to serve as a leader, to be a servant leader, whether that's a leader with a title printed on your business card, or it's a leader that you wear in some invisible tattoo somewhere.
Yes.
That you ask yourself what that action is, what you can do relative to some of the comments from today's brief presentation.
Really quick, I have a quote that I use of yours in all the workshops that I do with a beautiful photo of you. And it says, if you don't end up with a plan, a good time was had by all, and that is all. And it's so relevant because I know it's great when we get together and when we get to be with the people who dialed in today, and when we get to be around people with similar mindset and enthusiasm, but it's not enough just to come together and have a good time. The next step is to take an action, to create a plan. What's next? How do I follow up?
Right.
Who else needs to know about this? And I think that's something we've learned from you as well, because you're a person of action.
Well, I learned that from Peter Drucker. When he was talking about those 3 questions. And what is our business? Who is the customer? What does the customer value? And after I had the posters made, he said, it's not 3, it's 5. What have been our results and what is our plan? So the results, measuring results sometimes is painful, but it's essential. And so if we're going to be mission-focused, values-based, demographic-driven, manage for mission, manage for innovation, manage for diversity, then you answer the question. And what is our plan? And you can't say, well, right now I really don't have a formal plan, but I will. No, sorry.
Start.
And that's where the mentors come in that can help put some structure to that and give ideas, pull things out of you.
Absolutely.
And like I mentioned, I love this office because in every direction we're surrounded by not just your books, but books that have influenced you, and by other leaders and world leaders and magazine covers. And and awards and certificates. All of these things are the influences. And it's so important that we create our own influences and not just be impacted by the news or the negative that gets fed to us so hard. How do we create our own? And again, not just positive thinking, but really by design, who do we want to be influenced by so that we can take action, so that there's movement and something forward thinking.
I'm saying yes to every word you said. Yes.
A couple of comments in closing,
okay.
And then we're going to hang out, and we don't have to leave right away, but I know some of you have meetings coming up that you have to get to.
Say what you're going to say, then I have a thought.
Oh, you want to do your thought first?
When you finish your thought,
okay.
Why don't we go down to the second floor where we have a magnificent cafeteria, and I take you to lunch.
Lovely.
Well, we're getting lunch in New York. I don't know what you're all doing today. Frances, I'm going to put you on the spot. Most people know where your office is. Are you still accepting birthday cards these days?
Yes, with no number.
No number, but you
age, my grandfather at 97 read for his last 3-year term as Justice to the Peace, South Fork, PA, a little mining railroad town. And when people would say, and he looked 30 years younger than he was, Clarewitz, Esquire, Clarewitz, do you mind telling me your age? And he would smile, and he'd been born in England. His lovely voice would say, yes, thank you, because age is irrelevant. It is what we do with our lives that count. So men never ask me my age, but women, occasionally women will say, do you mind telling me your age? And I say, yes, thank you very much. May I quote my grandfather? So I was over to Waldorf. I gave you her name, one of our most famous women in public, and everybody loves her. She came over and she said, we've never formally met, but I want you to know I love what you're wearing. I just think it looks stunning. I said, thank you very much. And she said, and I love the way you're here. The way you look today, I just had to tell you, it was Mary Tyler Moore. And I looked at her. She said, do you mind telling me your age? You look so marvelous. And I said, may I quote my grandfather? She said, yes.
Yes, thank you.
Age is irrelevant. It's what we do with our lives that count. Oh, this is off the record, okay?
You're about to tell the world.
Well, she said something. Why didn't I know that 30 years ago? And so we smiled, and but I always, when anyone says, do you mind telling me your age? I say, may I quote my grandfather, please? Age is irrelevant. It's what we do with our lives that counts. Mm-hmm. And people buy it. I had one woman say, why wouldn't I know that? Why didn't someone say that to me years ago? I said, well, today's a good day to begin.
Start.
Well, I know Jason likes to celebrate his birthday for almost the whole month. I try and keep him to the month of April. So
really?
yes, because he would celebrate for the whole quarter if
allowed.
there weren't a little edges around.
But Frances has a birthday coming up. If anyone wants to get a card in the mail, email me and I'll get you the address.
November 1st. So let us be the first to say early happy birthday. Delighted.
And for those of you who are still with us, relative to that last bit of ad lib, I didn't know that was coming in today's program. If you have a moment to put in the chat window an action that you have come up with for you, and I'd like to read some of these out loud as the concluding of our event today. So I know some of you were moving on to your next thing this afternoon. If something in your notes got a little star or a check mark next to it today, and if you're willing to share with the audience a task, a project, a way of thinking, a way of being, I'll have you read a couple of these, and then we will sign off from New York. So thank you, everyone, for being with us today. We certainly appreciate your time.
Yes, we loved every single minute, and you were wonderful to join us. We hope we'll do it again.
Anytime we're in town, we will work to make this happen with you. Thank you for having us.
We are always an email away, and we look forward to staying in touch.
Very good. So here they come. The comments are starting. So first of all, happy birthday. Lots of birthday wishes. I will start doing a lot more positive focus. This is something that I learned today. Her quote regarding thoughts, deeds, and actions is potent. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for this time. No questions from Fort Worth, but thank you for getting my brain started this morning. There's so many things to consider. Another comment, hello. I'm going to continue to focus on the positive in the future. And another watcher wrote in, how to be, not how to do, resonates. And a mentor will help bring structure. I plan to reach out to my mentor more often, starting today. Fantastic, well done. And I am delighted to meet Frances, and the comments from Jodi and Jason. So thank you all so much for those thoughtful comments and sharing them.
I'm going to read a couple more. This one came all the way from India. I will be reading more biography and history. Someone else wrote in, I will take time to clearly state my values and vision. I will create my vision for the future and identify mentors that I want to cultivate in the next week. Cultivate. And then finally, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon. It's Monday. You have an entire week ahead, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you for joining us.
Service to live, and thank you.
Bye-bye.